Hello, this is an update on the quilt and hoop process that I've been trying to get my settings correct, and I'm working on a Janome Mb4. And my last video series, when I first attempted this, I was using embroidery thread because it seemed like the embroidery thread had a rougher texture, so the tension discs were able to make it tighter and make that meeting of bobbin and top threads, right in the middle of the batting. It just needed that roughness of the embroidery thread, because when I used a regular quilting thread like a Tex 30, an Omni Tex 30, I wasn't able to get the threads to meet in the middle. The bobbin thread still wanted to pull to the back, so the bobbin looked just like a straight line, or they call them railroad tracks, with the little dots of top thread peeking through the bottom. So I've been working on this for a while, trying to be able to use quilting thread, because I don't want to use shiny embroidery thread for quilting. It's not as strong. It frays and it's shiny, and it's not really what I want for quilting. So I've tried 3 different scenarios here, and I'm going to try one more. The one that I think is going to work is this one, where the top thread is so fine, which is a 50 weight thread. Well, they come in different weights, but I'm using the so fine 50 weight on top. In the bobbin, so fine 50 weight as well, so the exact same top and bottom. And then the bobbin tension was loosened quite a bit to 100 millinewtons. That's on a TOA gauge. I have a digital TOA, and you can use either millinewtons or grams when you turn it on, and I'll show you that in a minute. And 100 millinewtons is approximately equivalent to 10 grams. So right now it's on grams, gram force, GF, and if you hit this, it'll go to millinewtons. It's just a different way of measuring force or whatever. So, you can get more exact when you use millinewtons because it's in the hundreds, whereas grams is more in the tens. So I'll show you that in a minute. And I'll also show you my settings that I have in a minute, on the machine and so on. But this first one is, the top is Omni, it's a Tex 30, so it's slightly thicker than the So Fine on this one, and it's about a 40 weight. Like when you look at it, they look the same thickness, but it's smoother. It doesn't have the roughness of a 40 weight embroidery thread, I should say. So it's about like a 40 weight. Tex and weight are kind of equal at this point. Tex 30 kind of equals 40 weight, if you want to think of it that way. And then in the bobbin, I have so fine 50 weight. So in all of these, the bobbin is so fine 50 weight. The bobbin tension on this one is also 100 millinewtons, which is, the same as this one. And like I said, this is the one that I think I'm going to stick with, this scenario. But at any rate, and I'll show you the backs in a minute. So, and all the tops look good. This second one, I like the top better because it's it's tighter because the bobbin tension is tighter, so it's pulling the top tighter, but the back doesn't look good. It looks like a straight line or railroad tracks. This one is the same top thread as the first one, text 30. The bobbin again is so fine, and like I said, the bobbin tension is tight. So this top here kind of reminds me more of what I get on the long arm. And the whole reason I'm doing all this is because my right arm is shot, and I've been trying to use the long arm one-handed, and it's really hard. I mean, maybe I could get it if I started when I was younger, but I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't look good when I do it. So anyways, so having the bobbin tension up to 150, which normally when we do regular embroidery, our bobbin tension on the MB4 is about 200. They say 200 to 220 millinewtons, which is 20 to 22 grams. Normally, because we're pulling, we want that bobbin tension to be real tight and pull that top thread around to the back so that we don't see any bobbin thread on top. So most machines are somewhere around 200 for the bobbin tension, 200 millinewtons. But of course with quilting, you don't want everything pulled to the back. You want them to meet in the middle where the batting is. This is a quilt sandwich. It's got, 3 layers. It's got, well, I don't have the top here, but it's got the top, then the batting, then the backing. And this is all Moda cotton. Well, this is Moda. And the back, this isn't Moda, but it's pretty thick. Like, it's densely woven. It's close to being a Moda. So, and the top is starched to simulate how I quilt. I starch all my fabric. I pre-wash my fabric, then I starch it, then I cut it. And I don't use regular starch. I use that pretend starch. I'll show you the bottle if I remember. But at any rate, so I pre-wash it, I starch it, then I cut it, then I piece it. The backing, I don't starch. So I did the same things with my fabric for this experiment. So let me show you the backs. So I put these dividers because it is kind of hard to see them. And let me go down closer and you could see. So this is with the text 30. And, the bobbin is 100. So it's thicker. Looks good. This one is the same text 30. The bobbin tension is tighter, so, it's just a little tighter. If in other words, if you take your finger and go like that, perpendicular to the stitches, you'll feel it tighter than if you did this one where the bobbin was at 100. It's just slightly looser. It really, you can't really tell much of a difference. They both look good on the top. And then this one here is so fine on the top. It's a 50 weight, so it's thinner. And the bobbin tension is 100, just like this first one. So the bobbin's not pulling a lot, but it looks really good. And if you notice it, if I come over here, you could see it's slightly thinner than the one on the right. But it looks good. And then the backs, so then starting on the right again, I guess. So this is with the Omni Text 30 at 100 millinewtons. So, it's thicker thread on top than the one that I ended up with liking. So the thicker thread on top I thought that it would be allow, you know, more tension because it's thicker. Because on the machine, I have the top tension turned all the way up to 9, the highest tension. Everything is highest. And you would think that since this thread is, you know, it's about like the 40 weight. It's almost slightly thicker sometimes, you know, than some of the 40 weights. But it's smooth. So it doesn't really, let me see if I can get the right picture. Okay, so this one here, here's the dividing point because I didn't line them up. I didn't have my ghost template yet, and I thought, oh, I better stitch out my ghost template. So you can definitely see the division here. I mean, I don't know. It's okay, I guess, but it just, the stitches, I mean, they're not loose. Like that one looks like it might be. It looks like it might have an eyelash there. It just, I don't know, it just doesn't look as good. And if you take your finger this way, okay, there's no pricks, there's no railroad tracks. That looks like a railroad track, but they aren't. They're just the needle coming through this fabric and making a funny looking, you know, because, you know, okay, so there, okay, I did feel a railroad track. You can hear it. Right there, you heard it. But like here, there's no railroad tracks. Well, there's one. But then there's nothing there. So it is a little erratic, like where the railroad tracks are and aren't. There's one I heard. And then none. There's one. So I don't know, it just, so that's the text 30 on top. And then this one with the same thing, text 30 on top, and the only change is that I tightened the bobbin. Well, it's even worse. I mean, it's just a straight line. It looks really bad. So that's definitely not, that combination is not going to work. And then this one, and I have tried it with the Omni, the text 30 on top and bottom, but it's just, the text 30 is not, it's really not, it's not rough enough for my machine. So I don't know if it's just my machine or what, but so then the one that I ended up liking, this one here, it has, the top is so fine, 50 weight. The bobbin is the same as the rest of them. And the tension is at 100 grams. I mean, 100 millinewtons or 10 grams. This division here between these two is, it's a little harder to see it because this is when I used my ghost template, so they're nesting really well. So let's see. That's about kind of the division. So this is the one that I like the best. This is the best I could get it using quilting thread. And I know Natalia Bonner, I think her name is. She's a long armor. She has a gamble. She uses so fine 50 weight in the top on her long arm. But she uses she doesn't use the same thread in the bottom. In the bottom, she uses a thread called bottom line, and that's a 60 weight bobbin thread for quilting. I haven't tried that yet. I mean, and I'm not sure if I've tried the actual bobbin thread that we buy, because that's a 60 weight. But I should probably just get a spool of bobbin, bottom line for the bobbin, 60 weight, and try that. But so let me see if I can zoom in on this. Let's see. See that right there? It looks like it's a railroad track, but it's not. It's just the needle not puncturing clean. The needle is a size 14 because when I used the size 11 needle that we usually use for embroidery, I almost wondered if it didn't make a big enough hole for the top thread to be able to freely pull the bottom, the bobbin thread to the middle. So I went to a 14 because I believe I did try it with the 11 and I felt like it was a straight line. I tried it on some other samples. So it is weird. Like I said, those look like they're railroad tracks, but they're not. Like, let me try it with the other finger. See, you don't hear anything. So when everything relaxes a little more and washes, I think this will look pretty good. Now that looks like an eyelash. Let me see. Yeah, I can hear something. So, and that's because you can see, well, it's pretty tight. So I don't know. So now I'm going to try this same scenario, but at 150 on the bobbin. And I know it's not going to be good. It's going to look like a line back here. And I can't really go any looser than 100 millinewtons on the bobbin. I mean, right now that's really loose. So I'll show you how I set the bobbin with the TOA. So you take your bobbin case, and I know some people will have the Janome Mb4 or the Mb7, so they're not going to have this closed bobbin case. You'll have the open one. But at any rate, when you put it in the TOA, let me hold this down and press to turn it on. You have to take the thread out of the pigtail. Now this one is not a pigtail, it's like a loop, and I really like it better than the pigtail. There we go. See, it's like a U-shaped loop made out of a piece of steel bent. So you have to take it out of there. And then this is the digital TOA that is like, God, they're like $150. They're just more accurate, and you have to buy the insert for the big bobbin or the small bobbin. Well, mine takes the small bobbin. Some of the newer Janome Mb4 and Mb7 will take the bigger adapter. And yes, you could get the other TOA that's only like $60, but it's not digital. I like the digital one. But there's this one, and you actually buy the entire piece for either an L shape or an L size or M size bobbin. This is for my long arm, which takes the M bobbin. So yes, you could get this for cheaper. But so at any rate, you take that out of the pigtail and you make sure that this here is facing up, and you have to kind of, when you put it in so the bobbin doesn't fall out, you have to turn it to put it in, you know. You have to turn it over. So you put it in, and then once it's in, you make sure this is facing up to the top, and then you snap it down. And so then you take, usually it's best, and you want it on a flat surface, it's best to take your right hand, and you go under this first one. I'll switch hands, and then over this one, and then this is the one that reads the thread. Under that one, over this pin, and then a lot of times I'll go under, because if I go over this pin, the razor is here, and sometimes I catch it, but it does seem to be more accurate if you go over. And then you pull. And now, see, it says 10 because I'm on grams. And you don't want to get your hand way out here because then it becomes less accurate. So if you start to get your hand out here, go and put it back close again. And so I'm going to press this to go to millinewtons. And so now when I pull, okay, so it's about 98, which is like 188. So now it's saying 98, 88, but it's close to 100. It is hard to get it right at 100. I think before when I did it, it was showing 98 to 108. So, but I want to bump it up to 150. So I'll take my screwdriver because I'm going to try it with it tighter. Where's my screwdriver? And it's the bigger screw here. So not the small screw, but this one. And I'm going to turn it about 10 minutes. Might give me 50 more millinewtons. So I'm holding my finger on it, on the top. I'm holding my finger here. It's like 10 minutes on a clock. So I'll just try that. And then it's still kind of hooked in. Okay. And so as I pull, so I'm at about, one goes between 137 and 147. I'm going to go just a little bit more. Maybe 3 minutes. If that. So see, I'm high now. 157 to 167. And I only went like, God, not even. That's how sensitive it is. And I went back like practically nothing. So 147 to 157. So I'm somewhere in the 150 ballpark. So then when you take it out, you want to turn it over and then pull on this thing and then pull it out, you know, so your bobbin doesn't fall out. So then with all this thread, you know, you're supposed to cut it so that you don't wind it yourself. I guess to be accurate, I guess I'll have to waste it. A lot of times if you're doing like a basting stitch, you're like, oh, I'm going to use most of it anyways, so it doesn't matter. So, but I'll be correct. And then I'll do the pigtail and we'll test it. Now, oops. Before I hoop, I show you my hooping method. Can't get it in there. I like it better than the pigtail. It seems more secure, but it is harder to get in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bobbin in. Snap it in, let that hang. And then I guess I'll go over the settings for the machine. And hopefully you'll be able to see everything that I'm talking about. Here is the PDF, the fabric, the top, Moda Quilting cotton, pre-wash, yes. Starched, yes. Bottom, Moda Quilting cotton, pre-washed, yes. Starched, no, because we usually don't starch our bottoms. It's like a pain. You know, we just throw it on the long arm and spritz it to get out wrinkles and whatnot. The batting I'm using today is Pellon 8020. It's kind of dense and stiff. It's stiffer than Quilter's Dream Blend 7030. That's a really nice, that Quilter's Dream Blend is really nice. Really nice. And you know, you could still iron it when you're, because it's 70% cotton. You don't have to worry about it melting. But this Pellon, I just bought it because it was on sale. But, you know, it's pretty dense. So, but it's close to what I would normally use. A lot of people like Hobbs 8020. That's kind of soft. So I don't know. Maybe that would be better. Maybe the dense, stiff stuff is bad. But I've used soft cotton as well, and I'm still having the same result. The hoop, all layers are hooped, so I'm using either the M1 or the M2. I'm using the M2 today because I'm just experimenting. But all layers are hooped, so nothing is floated. Stabilizer, none, because you really don't need it, technically, when you're quilting in the hoop, when you're quilting a hoop. The needle is a 9014 sharp. The bobbin, we already went over. It says 100 millinewtons, but notice I just changed the bobbin to 150. But I think I'm going to like what I've been using and what I used on my Quilting in the Hoop series, that 17-part video series. It was at 100 millinewtons as well. Thread so fine 50 in the bobbin. Top tension on the top is 9 on the tension dial. That's the highest. So here it is up here. I'm using needle number 1. It's on 9. Where are we at? And thread is so fine 50. The Pretensioner is set at its tightest setting. So the Pretensioner is this dial up here. And I have it, you can see all these other needles, this isn't sticking out as much. So you'll notice that, you know, these aren't sticking up as much because these aren't dialed down as much. And Janome tells you for regular embroidery, just have this flush, this pin flush with the white. So I have these kind of tight. So I don't know. But this one is dialed all the way down as tight as I can go. Now in my other series, when I was using the embroidery thread, I actually had this looser. So I had it I think how these were, I can't remember. But I had the thread wrapped around twice. Well, it would be technically 1.5 or something. So I basically had it, you take the thread and, okay, so the thread comes up and there's that hole in the back. And then after that hole in the back, you come around into the discs and then over this pin. And then normally you just let it, that's how you set it. But on my other video, I wrapped it around again. Okay, and then I put it over. You know, this is thinner thread, but it has like a sharp texture to it, so I thought it would grab better. You know, and I think it is grabbing better. It's not as smooth and slippery as the Tex 30, the Omni Tex 30. This Sew Fine is made by Superior. They're both made by Superior, but this is just a little different. So at any rate, I might try that again, but for right now, I'm just going to leave it wrapped in the normal way, just one time. And I'll push this back just to make sure I didn't mess up my tension disc here. Okay. So that's my pretensioner is at its tightest, and it's just one wrap. So I should have made a note of that. But the check spring, okay. There's 2 settings for a check spring. Let me try to back up. Okay. There's the check spring tension, which is on the inside front cover. This front cover here, okay? This front panel, when you take it off, right here, okay, if you look inside, it looks like this. And that's the tension of the check spring. And normally the slit, you could see a little wire here. That's the check spring. It's wrapped, the check spring is wrapped around a long rod, and then there's a pin. You can see it here sticking out, and that pin is usually in the middle slit. There's 3 slits here, a top, a middle, and a lower. And Janome has it set for the middle. But if you want a tighter tension, they say to get a flathead screwdriver under this wire and move it up to the top slit. Okay, so mine actually on all my needles is on the top slit. So I don't know if you'd want to check that. So that's the tension of the check spring. There's also something called the stroke of the check spring. So I should have put this in parentheses here so that you could read it better. Let me do that. So it should read like this. The check spring tension equals the top slit, and the tension is on the inside of the front cover. Okay, that's this picture. The check spring stroke is set, I have it set for the longest stroke, meaning it's closer to the stop. So on the front of your machine, when you're looking at the front of your machine, you take a little Allen wrench inside, and I'm on needle number 1, but their picture is showing on needle number 3, and you take an Allen wrench and you loosen it and you pull it down to give it a long stroke. They call it a long stroke, but really it doesn't allow a lot of thread slack as the machine is making its motion. So mine is dialed all the way down. And so I don't know if you can see that here on mine, but I only did that on needle number 1 because normally you're supposed to have, let me pull this out so you can kind of see. When you have tension on the thread, you can't really tell what the check springs are doing. But you'll notice that these 3 check springs are all kind of at the same level. That's factory set as far as the stroke. They set it that the top of the check spring should be about 7 millimeters from this pin. I think it was 7. And you can see this one, I have my stroke really low. So this check spring, you can see it here. It's way down farther. There's a big distance. And that's because, and I know you can't see it, let me get a flashlight. Okay, so you can kind of see there's that black hole there. That's for an Allen wrench. And I know I'm kind of on an angle, so you can't. Okay, and it's a 2 millimeter Allen wrench, and you stick it in there and you loosen it and pull it down and then tighten it. When you pull it down, it makes the stop, which is up here. The stop, you can see it right there. And that stops the check spring from moving. And when you pull this down, it makes the check spring, it gives it a longer stroke. So you can see the stop right there when I pull the check spring up. There's the stop right there. So yes, it has a longer stroke, but it gives it less slack when the take-up lever goes down. So it's really confusing, and I had the full picture in my head when I was watching videos and so on about it. I actually watched a video from AndyTube, and he was talking about a Singer 301, and he really explained the check spring well. And I just converted that thinking to this Janome Mb4. I mean, it's all the same. It's the check springs and the take-up levers all do the same things. So anyways, so only on needle number 1 do I have it dialed all the way down to give it a long stroke, which is counterintuitive because, like I said, it actually gives you less slack. So, because you can see these, the pin is up a little higher. See, that pin's low, this pin is up a little higher. So, anyway, so that's how I have my check spring stroke set. And my check spring tension is set to the highest. So, I mean, I can't think of anything more I could do to get that bobbin thread to pull tighter. Unless, again, I try to wrap this pretensioner twice, or 1.5 rather. And I'll do that. I guess I'll have to do that next after I do this setting. So that's how that is set. So let's try to go and hoop now, and I'll show you my process for hooping. This is my method for hooping. Is, continuous hooping like you would do with quilting or any type of continuous embroidery. I like to make these what I call ghost templates. And I stitched this ghost template on the vinyl. And so I have several designs in my files. One's the actual design file, then there's the ghost template. My crosshair is red. I don't know if you can see that. There's double-sided tape on the back. That's why I'm trying to be careful. But you see the black are the ghosts, meaning those are the designs that have already stitched, or future stitch, whatever. The middle one is the design I'm stitching now. So the first thing I do is I line up. Now my designs that I've already stitched are on the right, so these are the ghosts that I'm going to pay attention to. This one here is like if something's stitched on top that I'm trying to line up. And these are if something's stitched on the left and I'm trying to line those up, and so on the bottom. So the ones on the right, it looks like there's only these two. So these two are what I line up with this. So I'm hoping you can see this. Let me zoom in. So this one here is this here. And this bigger one looks like it's this one here. So let me zoom in even more. So I have double-sided tape, real thin on the sides. I probably could have cut this. I cut it 1/8 of an inch out from the design. I probably could have went 1/4 of an inch out. I think that's how I did it the last time. And sometimes I put the tape at the top and bottom, and sometimes I put it on the two sides. So I don't know. This time I put it on the two sides, here and here. And it's strategically made so that it's not as wide as your hoop template, which is next. We'll do that next. But so the first thing we do is we line these two up. So I'll just place those on, and they just match perfectly in this one. And then and that's it. It's down. And then I take my hoop template, and this hoop template has double-sided tape just on the outside of this. So, and I think that's why a lot of times I put my hoop template tape at the top and bottom, but this time I was able to put it on the sides, just right here and right here. And I used my 1/4 inch tape. On this one I used my 1/8 inch tape. But it falls on the outside of this template, so it doesn't stick to the to this design template. So I match this crosshair on the hoop template with this crosshair on the design template. And here's the thing though. When you're hooping all the layers, it's hard to use the hoop template as it is, because these little things, like, it's too wide. You want a hoop template where it's folded right here. So you would take something sharp, you'd score it with a sharp blade, and then bend it up here and here, and then shave off the top and the bottom. Cut off maybe about 1/8 of an inch on the top and bottom, because really what you want is you want it to set inside the hoop with the sides folded up so that it doesn't move. So that's if your hooping all 3 layers. If you're just floating the top fabric like in regular embroidery, then you can use just the hoop template as is. That's for another video. But for this, for when you're hooping all the layers, I'll show you with the end hoop. This is kind of what you want. You want, and this one has tape on the bottom. You want, I have a spare one of these because I bought those Embroidery hoops, but you can see the side is folded up. So you can see that it's folded up. I don't know if you can see it on here. You can see it's scored and folded up, and the bottom is cut. So you have to have something pretty sharp to cut the bottom. And so this one, it would fit, you know, right in, it fits right inside the hoop. So when you're hooping all 3 layers of anything, or all layers of anything you embroider, this is the template you want to use for the hoop. Because then you can just line up the crosshair on the hoop template with the crosshair on your design template. And, you know, your double-sided tape on your template sticks to the fabric, and then you take your top ring, and when you place it over it, it just fits right in there, you know. So it's easy. And then I usually have tape on the bottom of, double-sided tape on the bottom of the hoop, and you can reuse that tape. And then when you slide your bottom ring under, you know, nothing really moves. Nothing really moves. You slide this under, and usually you slide it from the direction of something that's already been quilted. So in this case, the right side, you slide it under, and then you can go about hooping. So, but I don't have a template folded up, a hoop template folded up yet for my smaller M2 hoop. I just haven't made one because I don't know, I really haven't used it much. I've been using the M1 hoop, but that's on my agenda because I do have 2 of these. I have the one that came with the Embroidery and then the original, so I'll make one of them. But at any rate, since I can't use that method, I'll just do it the old-fashioned way, and I'll put the hoop template in the hoop, you know, where it's supposed to go, and then I'll still try to line it up. It's not going to be as accurate, but it's okay because I have a method for centering and rotating that's fabulous, so everything will be fine. So I did have tape on the bottom of these, but it's not working anymore. So I could remove it and redo it, but I'm not going to. Because like I said, with this method, everything is perfect anyways by the time we're done. And because I don't have to match point to point with this stitching like some of those other designs that are so hard to match up, and then you have an ugly tie off and then a tie on in the same spot. Because I don't do it that way, because mine are just individually nested blocks, everything looks good. So anyway, so I'll line this up and I'll pretend like I got some good tape on the bottom of that, and then and I wish I had more table space. What I've been doing prior to this is just then going and sliding this under the bottom ring under and then hooping. But now I've come across a new method that I like, where I'm using magnets to help hold this fabric tight before I hoop. Now I only have a cooling rack made out of steel. I'd like to try to find a cookie sheet made out of steel. So this is a little cumbersome. So let me try to zoom out even more. Normally I would have this on another table and I'd already have the cookie sheet down, but I'll just lift this up and put the cookie sheet under it. And of course, normally, and you really don't need to use the magnets when you have a huge giant quilt you're dealing with, but I'm going to try it once I find a steel cookie sheet or just a piece of steel or a steel table or anything that the magnets will stick to. So that's down, and then now that the cookie sheet is down, now I'll take the ring, the bottom ring, and put it underneath. Notice I have a little wooden clip here, clothespin or whatever, craft hook. That's because that's the gauge that I use for quilting. So I just keep it on there, and that's kind of the tightness, and it seems to work. And yeah, I could still tighten it down more, but that's about good. And I still test it once it's in, because I don't know if I moved it. So, but normally you don't have to touch it again as you're going from hoop to hoop. So, I'll slide this in. And then this is where I just take my fingers and I feel where the hoop is. So I just move the bottom hoop. I'm just pressing on the fabrics to move the bottom hoop where I feel it should be. And over here there's a gap, so I'm going to press down. So I'm not really moving the top ring, I'm just moving the bottom ring. So that's kind of underneath. Maybe a little more this way. And that's still kind of lined up. It's close. And then at this point, I'll take these magnets that I bought from Embroidery on Amazon. They come with their magnetic hoops, or you could buy them separately. And they're separate magnets, and they're pretty strong, and they're coated. So they're not as strong on top, but they're strong on the bottom. And the top is like if you had a magnet, the bottom one really sticks well to the top. That's what they call like non-opposing. You see how those really stick. And I believe that's how the new Brother hoops are. They have a magnet on the bottom ring and a magnet on the top ring. And these magnets attract to each other because, you know, the other side of the magnet has the other polarity. So if you put it this way, you see they're opposing. If you put them both the same way, they won't stick. They want to stick like that. So that's kind of cool. So that just makes those Brother magnets even stronger. So anyway, so I make sure that I hold them so they're not coming out the bottom and stick to my ring. And I just go ahead and I put a magnet down, you know, it's hooking onto the steel, and then I'll put one on this side, and then I'll usually put one there. This is the dial, so it's kind of cumbersome, and I'll put one there and there. And I've noticed that I don't really even need to put one on the two sides because this is so small. So I'll just put one there. And there. And maybe I wish I had more. I could use two more. I usually was putting one here. You know, this kind of sticks, but not that great. So I'll just put it there. or you can put it here. So, and now everything's pretty strong, and I can, you know, check over here and make sure the top is strong, and then I just press down. Okay, I think you can see it. I can't use my thumbs. I just go like that. And once it gets pushed down, you know, pretty good, then I take these couple of them off, and I just kind of check, and I can't move that screw at all. And so then I'll take all the rest of them off, put them aside, and now I recess the hoop because this has to be level with the bottom ring. The top ring and bottom ring have to be flush. So I'll go and I'll recess them. And you can see that's really drum tight. So you really get a really good hooping. Okay, my hoop template was stuck on the bottom, and so, but you can see though that it still stayed pretty straight. I mean, it's really, you know, a good hooping. I did want to try to make it so that it wasn't so straight, because I wanted to show you how to rotate and center your design. So let me try to do it again and not be so perfect. So I'm just going to take it out. And we'll just redo it. So I'll just go quick this time. So I'll just have this under it. So this is lined up with the ghosts. So the design template is lined up with the ghosts. Then I'm just going to come over with my regular template, and it has the tape on it that's not really sticking well, but oh well. And I am gonna try, and I'm gonna make it a little crooked just so that I could show you, and I'll make it off center just a hair, but normally you'd be matching them up, but I'm gonna make it a little crooked. Because maybe you don't want to tape it. Maybe you don't want to use the magnets. Maybe you just want to hoop it the best you can and then change it at the machine, which is fine. So I'll come and put this under. And I still want to use the magnets though with this second version here. Because it just makes it tighter, and it doesn't take long to do the magnets. I mean, if anything, more than anything else, you want everything to be taut and even. I was going to order some more of those. Okay, so now we'll push down. So you can see it's crooked. I don't know if you can see that. Take these off. And I just checked this, and I tried to tighten it. And let's recess that. It's easier now because it's already like trained. Okay. So let me just show you. You can see the center, it's off center and it's crooked. So I hooped crooked. Hopefully I didn't hoop too crooked because, you know, well, this design is 3.8 inches. So I should be okay with my M2 hoop. I usually make my designs like a 1/2 inch smaller than the hoop allowance. So this one's, you know, it'll be fine. So then once you have it hooped and recessed, then you take off the hoop template. 'Cause that's just for hooping. You leave the design template on because that's for centering and rotating. So then you put it on the machine. And I might have to move the camera. Okay. Now remember, we're pulling up the design this time, not the ghost template that you stitched on the plastic. Now we're pulling up the actual design. So menu or open, open. It's on my USB. It's under Q, so I'm going to go backwards. I have everything in folders, so it's quicker. Quilt in the hoop circles. There's my ghost. Here's my main for the M2. And there it is. And you can see I have like a basting stitch going all the way up to the first stitch. So that's so that you don't have to worry about pulling up your bobbin thread and so on. So it's up to you how you want to do that. I still pull it up, but then that wastes a lot of thread. So, and some of the designs don't have that on it, I think. I can't remember. But if you end up getting one of these and yours doesn't have it, or you need it different, or you want your basting stitch to be longer stitches or anything like that, or shorter stitches, just let me know. It's easy to change. So the first object is the crosshair, and your machine always defaults to the center of the hoop. So if I did have the hoop template on, this needle number 1 is showing. You know, it always does that. It's always needle number 1 to the center of the hoop. And, you know, that needle would be in the center of this hoop template. But we don't want to follow the hoop template. We want to follow our design template. That's our guide. That's, you know, that's where we want the design to stitch. So we have to change the location of needle number 1 if it's not correct. So we'll go ahead, since the machine always defaults to the center, if I were to leave this, it would stitch off center and crooked, and we don't want that. So the first thing we do is we check to where the machine is. Actually, the first thing we should do is set our needle assignments. Sorry about that. So for me, I'm going to have them both on needle number 1. And we're not stitching the crosshair. I'm just going to follow it in a minute. But So we go to this arrow here to do our needle assignments, and up here to assign one needle at a time. Object number 1 is going to stitch with needle number 1. That's okay. And I'm going to put a stop on it just because, I don't know, I seem to always do that just so I don't be rushed. So then, even though we're not stitching it, it's okay. So now we'll go to object number 2 with this arrow here. Object number 2, it's saying, is going to stitch with needle number 2. Well, we want it to stitch with needle number 1 because that's where I have my thread in. So I'm going to hit a 1, and then that's it. We use the back button to get back, and we'll just go back again. And nothing changed because it's still, it says needle number 1 like before. So now that that's set, and you can save that in your machine if you want, because once you save it in the machine, then your needle assignments should stick. However, sometimes I've noticed the stops don't stick, but that could just be me. But at any rate, so now you say, okay, well, I have to check for center. So we're going to do two things. We're going to check for center and check for rotation. So first we check for center. We push down needle number 1, and mine doesn't stick sometimes. I have to push it a little harder. I don't know why. And I could tell right away that it's not in the center there. So I'm going to jog it over to the left. So the jog buttons for that are these buttons here. This one will take you right to the center of the hoop, the default center, but then these will jog the needle so it'll stick, you know, wherever you jog it, that's where it'll stay throughout the whole stitch out. I mean, no matter what you do, it'll stay. It may seem like it's not staying, and I'll show you that in a minute, but it is staying. So let's go ahead and jog. And it goes by like 0.1 millimeter at a time. So sometimes if you want to, you can try and hold it down. That might have got it a little quicker. The only thing about this machine, and I wish Janome would update this, it doesn't show you your movements, your X and Y movements on the screen, you know, because then you could write it down or whatever, know it, but it doesn't, and that's too bad. So now you look at it and you say, well, okay, I mean, I can't see it, you know. This isn't a single needle machine. Like, I can't really tell because the needle's not far down. So the way to bring your needle down is to go to the back of the machine with the hand wheel, and if you go to the left side of the machine, you're going to turn the hand wheel. So here I am on the left side of the machine, and I'll turn the hand wheel towards me. So as I do that, you'll see this take up lever go down, and we want to turn it maybe a quarter turn so that this is about halfway down. So I'm turning it now towards me. It's harder to turn when you've already got the needle pressed down. When I have it snapped down and I want to dial the hand wheel to get the needle down farther, a lot of times I'll take my finger and push down on the needle bar while I'm dialing the hand wheel. That's not good advice, though. I really, you know, with your finger that close to the needle while you're turning the hand wheel, it's just not safe. Maybe if you put your finger up here, like to the right here, and press down would be safer. So if I did that, even that can be scary because sometimes the needle will like pop up. The whole needle bar will pop up as you turn the hand wheel. So it's kind of scary. So I'm going to go ahead and dial the hand wheel. Where's my little... I usually use one of these shelf liners because it's easier to turn it. So I'll just dial it just a little bit and see how it popped up. If I would have had my finger on it, it wouldn't have popped up. But it popped up and I may not have turned it enough. See, it still doesn't go down all the way. So now that it's kind of loose, I'll just dial it a little bit more to the left. And as I'm dialing it, the take-up lever is going down farther, just so you know. So I think I dialed it a little more. No. So I'll dial it a little bit more and then try it. And there it goes all the way down. So it's just kind of weird, you know, you do have to be careful. So at any rate, now I'm back at the front, so I'm checking. And it does look like it's directly in the center. Everything looks great. As far as center goes, we still have to check for rotation because we know that I hooped it crooked. Because if you think about it, you know, if you think about, just say, you know, you have a rectangle and say that the rectangle is, you know, say this is your rectangle and that's the center. Well, your needle could be on the center, but the rectangle could still be rotated. You know, I can rotate this all the way around and the center still stays in the same spot. So just finding center is not enough. You have to check for rotation. So that's what we'll do next. So we've checked for center. Center is good. So now we check for rotation. And the way to check for rotation is to follow our crosshair. Our crosshair, if you recall, is the first object. I'm not going to be able to get them all in. Okay. So to follow the first object, you hit the F button. And now I am going to push this down because I want it to kind of lock in. Oh, it's not going to let me lock it in because I dialed the hand wheel, if you remember. So I'll just hit the F button to go to, say, the first stitch, and I'll get that warning again. Needle bar's out of position, press OK, OK. Okay, so now I can snap this down. Okay, and I'm going to use my fast forward button to fast forward through the crosshair. And I'm going to try to get a good visual of the crosshair. So as I press this F button, I'm going to go stitch by stitch on this first object here that's highlighted, which is the crosshair. So I'm pressing the F button. So that's the first stitch. And let's look at it. If I can get a nice center straight on view, it kind of looks like that needle is to the right of this crosshair. So if it's to the right of the crosshair up at the top, then think of a spinner on a game board. If it's at the right on the top, it's going to be to the left of the crosshair on the bottom. So it makes you think, oh, if I needed this spinner to be vertical, I'd have to rotate this spinner counterclockwise. You know, I'd have to rotate it counterclockwise like 1 or 2 degrees. So right now it's like this, and I want it to spin counterclockwise like that. That's what you're assuming. When you see that, you don't even have to go any farther. You know you have to rotate it. But just for the sake of the video, let's fast forward some more, and let's see if the needle does show up to the left of the crosshair. Ever so slightly. I'm going to reverse. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's ever so slightly to the left. So I probably just have to rotate it 1 degree counterclockwise. So with that in mind, the way to rotate then, you go to the menu and then the edit screen, and then rotate, this rotate here. We don't want to do 90, we want to do one of these up here, which is going by just one degree. We want to go counterclockwise, so that's this one here. As soon as I pressed it, the design moved, and we went from, it did say 0 degrees. Let me go back, and now it's saying 359. That can be confusing, and I'll tell you how these systems are set up. Let me go back. Okay. When you first open it, it says 0 down there. You know, when we first come to the screen. Well, that's because these machines, they look at this position of the design. Positionally, they say, okay, my design is at 0 degrees. And if I rotate my design in this manner, well, meaning clockwise, that means I rotated it, you know, 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees, you know, 90, and then 180, 270, 360. So in a clockwise manner, you know, if I went clockwise, then this will go, if I go 1 degree clockwise, that'll say 1 degree. But if I go counterclockwise, it says 359. Let me go back. That's because positionally, 0 degrees and 360 degrees, okay, this point here, it's the same position. So the machine doesn't want to say, oh, okay, you're going 1 degree counterclockwise. That's too wordy. You know, that's not how it, you know, that's not how they want to portray it positionally. They just say instead, they say, oh, you're going 1 degree counterclockwise. Well, that's the same thing as going, keep touching the screen, 1 degree counterclockwise. This button here is the same as going 359 degrees clockwise. Because let's think about it. If we were to go clockwise, 90, 180, 270, you know, getting closer, 300, 359, you know, I'm at the same position as I would be if I were to be rotated counterclockwise 1 degree. I'm at the same position. So 359 and counterclockwise 1 degree is the same position. So don't let that confuse you. So we rotated it 1 degree counterclockwise, which is 359 clockwise. So let's check it now and see if we're on. So we hit OK. And here's what you see. You look down and you're like, what the heck's going on? My needle's not in the center anymore. I thought I jogged it early on with these jog buttons. Well, don't worry, because when we like I was telling you before, your jog buttons are saved. I mean, if you go to the menu edit screen, you know, you'll see menu edit. You know, this design is jogged. You can see my red crosshair and the crosshair for the machine, you know, they're not lined up. You could see this design is jogged to the left, like we moved it. So you can see this thick red line is the machine's crosshair, and then my thinner red line is how we jogged it. And it looks a little jaggedy because we also rotated it. So rest assured that your jog buttons are saved, even though when we go back, it doesn't look like it. And what you'll notice is when I hit the fast forward button now to check our rotation, what you'll notice is I hit this button here, that needle jogs to the left and then goes up. So it's following our jog. So everything's okay. So I'm going to hit the fast forward button and watch the needle jog to the left and go up. See how it kind of jutted to the left? And now you can see it kind of looks straight, perfectly vertical. It's perfectly, this needle is right on the line. So I bet you when I come down to the bottom, it's going to be right on as well. So I'm going to hit the FF button. And it's right on. So I'm rotated perfect, I'm centered perfect, I'm ready to go. So I'm not going to stitch the crosshair, of course. So we're going to go to our next object or next thread color, okay, which is our design. So I'm going to hit this now. So that takes me to the first stitch of my second. I don't have to do fast forward or anything. You don't have to hit the FF to get to the first stitch of the second object because it automatically goes to the first stitch of the second object. That's only on the second object. On the first objects, when you're doing regular embroidery, yes, if you want to get to the first stitch of the first object, then yes, you have to hit the FF button one time. But we're good. We're at the first stitch of our second object. We can remove this, and usually you want to kind of peel it and stay close to the fabric, especially when it's new. I mean, this is really strong tape that I used. I'll turn it upside down. When I hit the start button, you can see I messed up my thread here. Okay, so I guess I wasn't paying attention. So I have to rethread this. So Okay, it looks like my needle is out of position. So let me pull back the tension, put it in the spring. And I'm going to hit the start button, and it's going to give me a warning, I'm sure. Oh no, it says machine starts to run. It's not even threaded. So if I want my needle to go up, let me just hit the X. If I want my needle to go up so that I can thread it, I'm going to just hit the FF button one time and to get that warning. Oh, it's not doing it. All right, well then I'm going to go over here and, oh jeez. Okay, so to get this to go up so that I could thread it, I'm going to dial in the back. I'm going to go to the left side and I'm going to dial this down a little bit so that I get the warning so my needle comes up. Okay. So now I'll hit the FF button. I get the warning. I'll say okay. And it'll snap up. And that might scare you because it is kind of a loud sound. So now I'll go ahead and sorry about all that. So I'm back here at the I'm at the first object, the crosshair. So I'm going to go to the next object. Okay. And like I said, you don't have to pull up the bobbin thread for this design because it makes a long basting stitch, but I'm going to just pull it up. I'll show you how I do it. So I'll hold the thread kind of long and kind of loose, and I'll hit start once to get the warning, and then I'll hit it 2 times real fast. So once I got the warning, and now I'll hit it 2 times fast. And that pulled up my bobbin thread. Here it is right here. So I'll pull that. I'll just put them both in the spring here. And now I'll just hit start. Once, and then once again. See, it just starts with the basting stitch. And then I'll just kind of, I know this design, how it's going to stitch, so I'm just going to hold these off to the left for a minute, loosely. And there, now I'll just kind of let it go, because I know it won't stitch on the left anymore. So again, I mean, the top looks really great. It's really nice and tight because the bobbin is set at 150. But there's probably going to be railroad tracks and just like a straight line of stitching on them. You know, like, you're not going to see the dimension of the bobbin stitches. And then when it stops, it still makes a tie off, but then it makes a long jump just so that I could bury in just 2 stitches. So that just, you know, it just comes right off. So I can bury my threads, and I can bury these too. So let's see what the back looks like. Let's bring it over here. So there's the front. You know, it looks great. Stitches are nice and tight. It's just beautiful. And so let's see what the back looks like. These are the basting stitches. I don't like it, and I knew I wouldn't. It just looks like a straight line. That's because the bobbin is pulling everything back. So, and I can see if I hear any railroad tracks. There's one there. There's one there. You know, this whole circle has railroad tracks. I can hear them. So this isn't going to work, and I knew it wouldn't. So like I said, the other thing I could do is maybe try this and make the top double wrapped around the pretensioner. That way it'll make the top pull tighter and pull, you know, pull these bobbin threads closer to the middle. So basically it's this recipe here that I'm settling on for right now, with the bobbin tension at 100 millinewtons or 10 grams. And so fine on the top and the bottom. Usually I bury these while it's still in the hoop. So I'll take the snag it needle that has the thing in the top, the slit, and I'll just take this one to the back and bury it, because you know the ending one, well, a lot of times though when you pull on it you can already see the loop, so I'll just take it, I'll just grab that loop if I could see it. Sometimes that happens, especially at the ends. I'll just pull this one and then pulls the loop up. You know, because the ending ones they don't stitch over themselves, so to speak. So I made that double knot, not double knot, single overhand knot, and I've got the needle in there, and I'm pulling on the thread so that it's about 1/4 of an inch away from the fabric. The knot is about 1/4 of an inch away. So then I'll put the needle in, hopefully not in a hole that's already been done. I mean, this does have a tie off, so now the needle is in between the batting and the backing. Then I'll slot it. And I put my fingernail there and push down, pull up some slack while it's doubled up. While it's still doubled up, that's when I yank on it to get the knot to snap in, because I just feel like it's stronger. There, it's snapped in. And then when I cut it, I don't even cut it. I just pull on it and I put the scissor by it and then pull the thread. And then this one, this is, you know, the basting stitch, and it really does waste a lot of thread. I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, so this is where it started. I just flipped it over. I think it kind of made a knot there, so I'm just going to cut that because I still have all this that I can work with. So then I'll just keep pulling this. I kind of think I want to go back into this file and make these basting stitches longer because they don't need to be this short. They're about 1/4 of an inch long because then, you know, it just takes longer to get them out. But when you have a multi-needle, it's nice to have just this travel stitch. Especially my multi-needle, you know, it's a little older. So now here I am at the beginning, and I'm going to turn it over and see if I pull on the bobbin thread. This was that thing that I cut. So this is not going to pull up a loop. So if I want to just feed this to the back, I have to go into the hole with the snag it needle. I can't really see what I'm doing, but, and then snag it. And a lot of people don't even do this, they just cut it, but I like to have a tie off and I knot and bury both. So now they're both in the back. So now I have such a long thread that I can do it the quick way where I turn my finger outward, flip it around, put my thumb in the little hole, grab it with these 2 threads, pull this over, and now I have a knot. And I take my needle to be 1/4 of an inch away, pull that down, the knot, pull the needle out, the knot is right there. And then I just try to go in a spot where there's not a hole, otherwise it won't stay. Snap it in. Push, pull some slack. One of them came out. Pull them both again. I can't see. Okay, nope. Okay, push it back, pull it in, pull up some slack, and then snap it. Pull the rest of it out, and then cut it. So that's my conclusion. Pull this out. It was like this. Oh, sorry. So see, which one's tighter. I mean, this one is tighter. I mean, not by much. Wait, am I looking at the right one? Yeah. I'm trying to see where they end. I was in the wrong spot because this thread is slightly darker. This 50 weight is slightly darker. So because they nest, it's hard to see the difference. God. Let's see. So it kind of goes like this. So I could say, look at these two. Even though this one's smaller. So this one would match up with this one. I mean, yeah, this one is tighter. But as far as the backs go, well, I don't need the tags. So we have God, I can't make sense. It goes like this. So these two and these two then. So this is, it just has more dimension. Sorry. This one and this one. So this is the 100 millinewtons on the bobbin. This is the 150. And this, you could see it has more dimension than this one. This one and this one. You can see the stitches better there, and this looks more like a line. So, if anybody has any suggestions, I'm open. I'm going to be calling Janome to see if they have any suggestions. The next test is going to be to wrap the Pretensioner twice. And I think I'm just going to go back to the I don't know if I should keep it at 150 and wrap it twice. I guess I'll have to do it both ways. But I want to see if they'll make us a hoop where the ring with the brackets on it, I want that to be the bottom ring. So that to be on the bottom. So in other words, this ring here, I want this ring to have the bracket. And then this just to get pushed in, like the single needle, like the flatbed, regular sewing machine type embroidery machine, the combo machines are. I thought about, did try to just take these brackets and put them on the bottom, but then the machine is the improper distance or the hoop is the improper distance from the needle and so on. The other thing I was going to do is buy the dime hoop, but not use her magnet, because her magnet, it's all one piece, you know, and it lays on top or on bottom for these multi-needles. You could do it either way, but you can't center and rotate with just this one magnet. It's too hard. And the fact that she says you could move it around, that just tells you that it's not very tight if you can pull on the fabric and that. So I thought about getting it and just using the bottom steel ring, the bottom steel part with the brackets on it, and then using my magnets, you know, around. So then I could center it better. I can make my own template for it. I can make the template like the Embroidery templates. They're really cool. They have a cutout in the corners. So I could still do my same system, and then just put the magnets in the corners, and once everything is centered, pull the template off, and then finish putting the magnets around, you know, here and here. Okay, so I double wrapped the Pretensioner, and when I used it with the bobbin tension tight, it still didn't look good on the back, and I'll show you in a minute. It looks great on the front. They both look good on the front. This one worked pretty good. So I lowered the bobbin tension back down to 100, which is where I like it, and double wrap the Pretensioner. So there's the front. And here's the back. So the one on the right is at 150 on the bobbin, and the one on the left is the 100. And the one on the left, it looks pretty good. I could see the stitches. So by double wrapping the Pretensioner and keeping the bobbin loose, like somewhat loose at 100, it was able to pull, the top was able to pull that bobbin more to the middle, so it doesn't look as much like a straight line on the back. So I guess that's all I could do. Everything is tight on top, as tight as it can be. And the bobbin is as loose as it can be. I don't know how much more I can do on the top, you know, to make it tighter. I'd like to, you know, keep the bobbin at 150 and make the top tighter, but I can't make the top any tighter. I mean, double wrapping the Pretensioner was the last thing I was able to do. So I ordered this thread, this bro thread. It's just regular sewing thread, and it's a 30 weight thread, and you can get it either on Amazon or you can get it at this new bro thread /official.com site. And you know, you can get lots of stuff here, and lo and behold, I was really surprised. It really seemed to make my stitches tighter, and it was beautiful. You know, it's a 30 weight, so 30 weight is slightly thicker than 40 weight embroidery thread, but it's also, um, let's see, what was I using before on top? I was using the 50 weight on top, the So Fine quilting thread, which was a 50 weight. Well, that's thin. And so this is thicker, so my tension discs were able to grab it better. And I was surprised because this is 100% cotton, and it's mercerized cotton, which makes it real smooth. So I was really surprised that it turned out so well. And I'll show you a picture here of the top and the bobbin. And you can see my stitches are nice and defined, and they're actually tighter than what I've been getting. And the bobbin, they're defined, which I know it's hard to see on this fabric, you know, how nice the bobbin looks, because number one, I'm using a size 14 needle. The way I'm poking through with that needle, it almost looks like there's pokies here, but it's just the fabric hole that the needle made. And granted, this is not motif fabric like this one, but it's pretty densely woven. And these are just seams here because I was just attaching more fabric. But I'll show you in real life when I take my fingernail across the stitches vertically, they are tighter. And so before I show you that, I also wanted to show you the other thing I did change, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but I tied this piece of batting around where the thread comes up through this first needle guide. You can kind of see them, you know, here and here. And I tied it to just maybe make this a little tighter. So I think that did add some extra tension to the top. And there's one other thing I wanted to show you on the screen. Oh, so with my tension settings, so then my tension settings were adjusted down here. For the top, I have the thread. Currently now, I use the 30 weight bro thread mercerized cotton, and it says number 50S/3, and I believe that means that this is the number system here of the strands that are wrapped to make this thread. And there's 3 strands that are number 50 in size. And that's another measurement that is hard to translate into weight. A lot of people think that means weight. It doesn't. It's a Japanese numbering system. So when you look at the thread, though, it doesn't look like there's 3 strands wrapped, but I guess because it's so smooth and silky, you know, you can't see them that well. And so the next thing I'm going to try is, and I'll show you that in a minute, is Tex 40, which is about a 25 in the weight classification. So remember, Tex, as the number gets bigger, the thread gets thicker. With weight, as the number gets smaller, the thread gets thicker. So that's kind of, you know, what a Tex 40 equals about a 25 in weight. And that thread is called Coats Dual Duty. all-purpose cotton wrapped poly core from Whack. So the core is polyester, which makes it strong, but it's wrapped in cotton. So it's still going to have a cotton on the outside. And, you know, I'm not crazy about that, but it's hard to find something, you know, what I'm looking for with all poly. Because, you know, they say cotton is lintier and so on. Well, with the embroidery machine, we pull our threads from, you know, we cut it at the top and pull our threads from the bottom. And these threads are supposed to be conditioned in a way that they're not linty like the old-fashioned cotton thread. So, and I'll show you that website. So that was at Whack. Let me go to my cart. So it's not cheap, but it's 6,000 yards. It's a big cone. So it's Coats Dual Duty All-Purpose Cotton Wrapped Polycore Thread Tex 40 6,000 yards. And I was going to get beige, but I don't know, I might change my mind and get something a little lighter. This one, dark beige, or this one, taupe beige. I might get that, just to have something kind of neutral. So that's going to be my next test. So I'm going to go over now and show you when I run my fingernail across the stitches how much tighter they are. Okay, so here it is, and I stitched it out in a whiter color. And if I run my fingernail across it, you can see the threads don't move at all. They just don't move. So they are tighter. And there's no, if I run it parallel, then there's no pokey, so it's not too tight. It's not pulling the bobbin thread up. So that's good. So they look really good if I zoom in without it getting too fuzzy. And then if I turn it over, so let's see. It's always harder on the back. Is that the division or is it here? Let's see, it's here because they nest, you know, so it's harder. Okay, so that's what we're looking at there. It is harder on the back. But same thing. I mean, it's not as tight as the front because remember the bobbin tension is loose, but still it's pretty good. And there's no pokies. So you don't hear any snapping or anything. So maybe I'm on the right track. Maybe I'll just be using a sewing thread that's a little thicker, but still looks pretty on a quilt. So we'll try the next one up, the Tex 40, Coats Tex 40, all-purpose with the poly at the core and then cotton wrapped. So this one is these are the settings for this current one. Top is Bro Thread 30 weight, bobbin is So Fine 50, bobbin tension is 100 millinewtons, the pretensioner is double wrapped, the batting there's a batting wrap on the first guide. So that's it. So here you might be able to see the Tex 40. I did try it, and everything else is the same. I did not wrap. It says no batting wrap around that first guide because I assumed this thread was so thick that maybe it didn't need that. And I was kind of right, because if you look closely, and we'll look at this center picture, it almost looks like this top thread is almost making a straight line. It's kind of lying on top. So basically, what that means is that it's so thick that it's stronger now. The tension is pulling more, and it's pulling up the bobbin thread. And, you know, in some areas it's making a straight line. Not everywhere, but the other thing is it's not real tight. It's weird. It looks like it's laying on top in a lot of places, but it's not tight. Not as tight as the 30 weight cotton. Now this is cotton as well. Tex 40, I believe it was cotton. Here's the bobbin, and you know, the bobbin looks defined, but if you run your finger perpendicularly across it, it's really loose. So I don't know what to say about this. I don't like the look of the thicker thread, and I guess I could have tried to make my bobbin thread tighter and see if that pulled this in tighter, but I decided to not even try it because I don't think I want this thick of thread on a quilt. I don't like the look. So we'll go back to the 30 weight cotton thread, mercerized cotton, 100% cotton on top, and the 50 weight in the bobbin for right now. All right, guys, I'm really signing out this time. Good luck. I wish you the best, and write me if you have any questions on Facebook, Lisa We Quilt, or stop at my website, wequiltstudio.com. Thanks a lot. Bye.